Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for potentially one of the biggest transfer news videos, live streams we'll do in a while. Who knows when Romelu Lukaku will be announced to Chelsea Football Club, but arguably the even bigger news of the day. We have two. One, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been included in the Super Cup squad, which I'm more hyped about than signing Lukaku, I can't lie. Nah, but I'm joking. But even bigger, let's not kid ourselves, even bigger, the return of Mr. Listen. The Grand Dam has returned after a long hiatus. I hope you've had a good summer, my bro. How you been? How you doing? And how excited are you about Big Rom coming back home?
Oh, listen. Ladies and gents, I'm back again in my lanky form after losing bare weight because I've not been doing what I'm supposed to do. What you're saying, how's everybody doing? Big up to Laurenz as well. Con is in this thing as well. Con, when I catch you, big man, I'll be acting and DMing you and you have been blanking, bro. You're dead to me. You get me? You are dead to me, big man. But now, listen, big up to man like Laurenz for bringing me on the channel once again. Obviously, I've been off YouTube because I had a job, had things to attend to in life. But I'm back again, do you know what I mean? The Lukaku settings, Super Cup settings, Loftus-Cheek settings, everything is good, isn't it?
Everything is absolutely brilliant these days. I mean, hey, there was people losing their heads. Go back like 2 weeks ago. People was calling for Marina's head. People was calling for bloody everyone's head. And people was thinking we're going to sign Danny Ings. But now everybody seems to be quite happy. Some people are just a bit stressed. Will Lukaku play in the Super Cup? Will he not? We'll discuss all of that. We'll discuss all the latest news. But of course, I have to introduce the other guest who seems to have been airing Dammy for a while. But it's just what Con does. Sometimes Con just airs you. You have to deal with it. Man's verified. You know, he can do what he can do. Con, first of all, thank you for coming back on, and how you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, bro. Always love coming on, as you know. Sorry, Dammy, I just haven't seen your messages, bro. You have my number, so I don't know why you haven't texted me, but yeah,
I have your number,
it's all good. It's all good.
I forgot.
So you forgot you had the number.
Well, you blocked the WhatsApp as well, so what are you talking about?
Bro, this guy wobbles too much. Let's get into talking some Lukaku news because, you know, Dammy, he gets off on a tangent sometimes, you know?
Yeah, but this is what we love Dammy for, though. Imagine we wouldn't have tangents. How on earth could we stream for over an hour if no one would go off on a tangent? It's what you have to do. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's a lot to talk about, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. I can't lie. I would be slightly annoyed if Romelu Lukaku is announced about half an hour after we finish this live stream. So let's hope it's tomorrow morning, but he's coming anyway. Let's get the big news out of the way. Romelu Lukaku medical, check. Romelu Lukaku in London, apparently, check. Romelu Lukaku announcement, not quite check yet, but coming. You know, everybody's kicking off. You know, fly trackers. You know, Stansted Airport is replying to Dubois' tweets, basically with, you know, eye and an airplane emoji saying, "Ooh, is he coming?" type thing, or has he landed already? Then I see some people posting pictures of the light has just come on at Stamford Bridge. Is something being recorded right now? Then someone else says, "Well, it's chucking it down with rains that are probably not outside, are they?" So who the hell knows what's going on? But development has obviously moved along quite drastically since this morning. You know, the last 2 days, Lukaku was moving like John Cena because first the medical was apparently happening in Belgium. Then it was apparently happening in London. All of a sudden it was happening in Milan this morning. So who the hell knows? Nobody knows anything. But then we obviously had the picture, which you might have seen on the thumbnail, obviously with him in that car holding a Chelsea shirt. Although, are we actually 100% sure that's him? Because Lukaku is a big man. That man on that picture doesn't look that big, like, to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you guys seen the picture? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you also feel like he looks a bit small?
I mean, camera angles and whatnot. Do you know what I mean? I used that picture on my video as well, like a couple hours back. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's Romelu, in it. You know what I'm saying? We caught him in 4K. Obviously, that was a high quality picture, but we caught him in 4K. So that has to be him, in it. You see Dubois, and that guy has too much juice, man. He's at Stansted Airport. This man in British Airways embarrassing you in airports, you know. These are official bodies. Let me not even say too much, but it's all interesting. Apparently, my guy announced at 8 o'clock. Let's see how things unfold, didn't it? But I'm curious to see how things are going down.
Yeah, if it's 8 o'clock, that's what I'm fuming about. You know, like it's 6:15 now. We're not probably going to make it until 8, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I know, Josh. I'm just saying he looks a bit small. I'm just joking around, all right? Don't take everything so seriously. But Dammy, obviously I haven't spoken to you about it. How are you feeling about Lukaku? Obviously, the big rumor was Haaland for months and months and months, and everyone wanted Haaland, and I wanted Haaland. But I always said from, well, day one is maybe not the right word, but for a time anyway, that like if we get Lukaku, I'm nearly equally as happy as Haaland. Both have their pros, both have a few cons, you know, but they're not quite the same cons. Maybe Lukaku is more of a guarantee to hit the ground running immediately. You also don't put yourself in a situation where you lose him to like a potentially bigger club in a few years' time, which is not something you really want to have happen to your club, I suppose. But also, you put 115 million euros into a player where you'll get very few of it back. Some people will have the argument, who cares about resale value? Of course, I get that. But still, it's a pro, it's a con. So how do you feel about Lukaku? You happy? You excited?
Of course, man. People are talking about resale value like they're resellers on StockX. Sit down, man. You get me? Like, you're not selling shoes. What are you, man, doing? Come on now. Don't you buy crepes and use them to you fully satisfied? Our people are here comparing the fam. They should sit down, and people are trying to do too much. I get where they're coming from, but they're trying to do too much. Lukaku, for me, wasn't my first choice. I'm not going to sit down there, waffle, and act like Lukaku. I wanted him from the war. You can even find me on Twitter arguing with some people a few months back that I wouldn't want to see Lukaku ahead of Erling Haaland. But Haaland, we all knew financially that was going to be way too much money. Lukaku, excellent choice, banging in loads of goals at Inter Milan. He's very good at holding up defenders, very good at scoring all types of goals, as we've seen in the past. He's got an excellent Premier League record. Coming back to Chelsea, he's the second most expensive player the Premier League has ever seen. So Lukaku, everything that we've got on him right now is looking very positive. So I'm quite excited to see him in that Chelsea shirt because we now finally have a striker that is competent enough to finish at least a decent number of chances at Chelsea. So, yeah.
That's all we can hope for, really, because even the friendlies, right? Even whether it's, well, Bournemouth maybe a little less so, but especially Tottenham and Arsenal, like the amount of goals we should have scored in those two games, and we just haven't because none of our players, except apparently Kai Havertz against Arsenal, know how to properly score a goal. It's a bit depressing. So now hopefully Lukaku comes in and solves those issues. Obviously, he will come in with that expectation, an expectation too many times have backfired with Chelsea strikers, but hopefully he will be more on the lines of Diego Costa than, you know, on the lines of Alvaro Morata, I suppose. But the big question that people have, I suppose, is will he play in the Super Cup? So the deadline reportedly is 11 p.m. tomorrow night. Even if that's officially the deadline of naming him in the squad, clearly he will have to be announced and everything needs to be done before that, right? Obviously, he seems to be in London now anyway, so we're probably going to be fine with that. But when people said, yeah, he's going to come to London tomorrow morning, like the Athletic said, either tonight or tomorrow morning, I'm like, well, he's coming tomorrow morning and the squad's flying out to Belfast tomorrow morning. How on earth is he going to play? Like, is he going to fly to Belfast by himself and then no training session at all? He's just going to play. I doubt it. But now, we're in a position where he could play. So, Con, do you think he will?
I still think it's a bit of a reach for him to play, to be honest. I did see Nassar when he was talking about Pumisic, you know, after he signed his new deal with Puma. Someone replied to him asking about Lukaku, is he in London? And he said he very well could be, and the announcement could be tonight. So you never know. Because obviously he's been training. It's not like he's just been sitting there doing nothing all summer. He's obviously been training, so he just needs to get used to how we train and how we play exactly. But when you looked at Tuchel when he first came in against Wolves, you saw like an instant impact there, and he only had a day and a half. Like, he had one training session, didn't he? So it wouldn't be out of the question for Lukaku to play. But do I personally see him starting? Probably not. No.
No, I think starting is almost out of the question, to be totally honest with you. The difference, obviously, with Tuchel coming in on that day and having one training session before the Wolves game is, sure, it was the manager only had one training session, but the players still knew each other. Well, Lukaku comes in and hasn't played with any of the players. Like, that's a bigger deal than the manager only having one training session, if that makes sense, because the players can still go out and like do what they did for the last God knows how many months anyway, if that makes sense. But that's why, like, if Lukaku needs at least one training session to be in the squad, in my opinion. But I think at this point, there's a chance he makes the bench. Well, what do you reckon, Dammy?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it all depends on how quickly things can get sorted out. For me personally, like I said in my video earlier on, I don't see this actually happening. I don't see Lukaku starting in Super Cup against Villareal, not because I feel like he's not fit enough or anything along those lines. But he's got a lot of media work to do, a lot of PR work to do, a lot of stuff to sort out, a lot of contracts and things to sign. By the time he's done tonight, he might be feeling like, 11, 12 a.m.? then he's got to wake up early, get into training. There are so many different things that are involved. And they've also got to obviously fly to Ireland as well. Do you know what I mean? So there are too many things out there that I'm not entirely sure about. So I'd be very shocked to see him starting. I'd be shocked to see him in the squad, let alone starting in the first place. So Tuchel has a plan for this Villareal game because Super Cup is something that we would want to win at Chelsea. And I can promise you, he definitely wants to win it as well, first and whatnot. So I'd be very surprised to see him throw Lukaku in. I'm not saying Lukaku is not capable enough, but he's got a plan, and I don't think he's going to mess up that plan just to fit Lukaku in. So we'll see Lukaku against Crystal Palace, if anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think even if he does make the bench, I don't think there's an absolute guarantee that he comes on. I think if we say 1-0 down, 2-1 down, and we have like 15 minutes to go, I think he might just chuck him on, like, because what else do we do if we need a goal late in the game? But I think in general, I think it would be good if he could travel just to already start bonding with the teammates. I think rather than sitting in a hotel in London for the next 2 days until the players come back, either in the early hours of Thursday or like just in the afternoon of Thursday. I'm not sure when they're flying back, if they're flying back straight after the game or whether they're staying an extra night type thing. But I think it would already be good if he was, spending a bit of time with the squad just to make it more of a possibility for him to start or at least get like half an hour, 20 minutes against Palace. Because from the week after, what's the second game? Liverpool?
I believe something along these lines. Do you
know?
Comment section will tell us. I can't remember. But I know it's a decent sized game for sure. Is it Arsenal? Not Arsenal. I can't remember. Comment section will tell us in a sec.
It's Arsenal. It's Arsenal.
Arsenal, right? Yeah,
Arsenal, yeah.
Is it Arsenal? Is it Arsenal? I thought Arsenal was like the fifth game. But anyways,
Palace, doesn't matter. Arsenal, Liverpool.
Okay. Well, regardless, so hopefully Arsenal will be then the first start, if that makes sense, or well, at the latest. But it's just crazy. Obviously, I haven't actually come on a stream except on Lewis's channel to discuss the whole 115 million thing. So I will, it's a good chance to talk to both of you guys about it because there's already another debate going on between Chelsea fans on Twitter. It's like, is Marina now great or is she awful still because she paid what they wanted anyway, and we can't sell any of the players that we want to sell and stuff. At the end of the day, Inter Milan wanted 130 million euros. We paid 15 million less than that, and that is including every bit of add-on, right? Every bit of bonus. So, there is a chance it ends at 110 million euros, which is, 150 million euros is 97.5 million pounds. So we managed to remain under the 100 million pounds mark, I suppose. Does that really make a difference? Probably not, but it's good negotiating, in my opinion. It's good negotiating. The only small question I have with the whole Haaland stuff is, if we knew he was going to be too expensive for us, why didn't we just buy Lukaku 3 weeks ago? That's my only question. Like, if we was the way it switched around last week, how we went from like nothing to having had 2 bids rejected for Lukaku already. That's what the first news that really broke the Lukaku stuff off again. I'm like, so why didn't you just do that 2 weeks ago if you clearly didn't want to pay as much for Haaland as they were apparently asked? And that's the only small question I have. But aside from that, to get down another 15 million euros, brilliant. The wages are like, isn't he on under 200k a week? That's mental how we manage that. I don't understand. But at the end of the day, like I think you can only be happy. Sure, it's a lot of money, and I want to, include it with that question. I want to put it to you first, Con. Or if I asked you this already before, I can't remember. I speak to a lot of people. So if I've asked you this before, tell me and I'll put it to Tammy. If you think about it, people say, oh, we pay so much overpriced for Lukaku and this and that. Jack Grealish was 100 million pounds. Jack Grealish's biggest game of his career in club football was a Birmingham derby. And you're telling me we're overpaying for Romelu Lukaku, right? Who's won trophies, who's broken record after record after record, who scored more Premier League goals than Didier Drogba. And also, the reported fee, if that ever happens, for signing Harry Kane will be no less than 150 million pounds. Is Romelu Lukaku really more than 40 million pounds worse than Harry Kane? Well, they're exactly the same age, mind you. So I don't think so. But Con, do you think we're overpaying for Lukaku that drastically as people are making it out?
No, we're not overpaying for Lukaku at all. And at the end of the day, who cares about fee? We needed a world-class striker in this team, and we got one. You know, that's the only thing that matters. And when you look where the money's come from, it's come from Tomori, it's come from Guy, it's come from Livramento, it's going to come from Tammy. So it's not even coming out of Roman's pocket. It's just a well-run club, you know. So if you look at it like that, we're not really paying anything that we haven't got for Lukaku, you know, and that leads us to be able to get the Kounde we want, you know. And he's an amazing centre back at 22 years of age. So when people say he's overpriced, you're waffling because he's one of the best strikers in Europe. And when you're signing elite players, world-class players, you should never complain about how much you're signing them for. Because we've always said we want to sign world-class players at this club. We don't want no more Danny Drinkwaters. We don't want no more Ross Barkley's. We don't want, no disrespect to him, we don't want no more Girouds, you know? And we're signing Lukaku, so who cares about what we're signing him for? And we're signing him for, like you said, less than Grealish. And, you know, I'm a big Grealish fanboy. All right, man crush kind of thing, you know? But even then still, I feel like it's amazing value there. Because if you look at Grealish and you look at Lukaku, Lukaku's top 5 in his position, and there's no debate about that. You can't debate that. When you name your top 5 strikers, Lukaku's in there. When you name your top 5 wingers, that's where Jack Grealish normally plays on the left. Grealish isn't in that list, and they're paying more for him. And people say English tax, etc., but they're still paying more for him. So he's worth to this Chelsea team. He's probably worth more than that 100 million. From what he's going to contribute, he's probably worth more than that 100 million, and I'm not complaining about the fee at all.
Right, I agree. I just saw someone in the chat saying he's going to get 350k a week. That's not true. It's been confirmed by the most reliable sources that he's getting 12 million euros, which is 230,000 euros per week, which in pounds is just under 200,000. So I don't think you can complain about that at all. But Dami, what about you? Do you think we're overpaying? Like, I'm not 100% on the same boat as Conway. I'm saying not at all. I do see where you're like, you know, if depending on what your mindset is on transfers in football, I guess, like you could argue we're overpaying for most players these days. But I think it's a bit crazy to pay 100 million for a 28-year-old, a little bit. But I do think in comparison to what Kane would cost, in comparison to what Grealish cost, in comparison to what we paid for Morata, I don't think we're overpaying at all. But how do you see it, Danny?
This is not overpaying. But inflation is a thing. This is not overpaying in any way, shape, or form, by any stretch of the imagination, because you've got okay, let's break it down like this, because when people talk about overpaying, you've also got to put in context what else is available. People wanted Lewandowski, he's 33/34, for roughly £60 million. If you want to buy Harry Kane, you're going to spend about £150 million. Give me another striker, Martinez, whatever. In fact, it's not even Lukaku level per se, so I wouldn't even call him as a striker. But you've got other strikers in world football right now that are not really available. How many strikers are at Lukaku's ability level that are currently available in this market? It's supply and demand. There's very little supply and there's a lot of demand. So you're going to have to pay the money required. £96 million for a striker of Lukaku's caliber is not too much money, in my opinion. And we can talk about him being 28, but he just turned 28. He can play till he's about fit for another 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
At least.
So for me, he's very strong, very physical. And obviously, he's got a bit of pace to him, and his pace will probably fade away. But Drogba was still really good without pace as he got older. So it's all about maturity. So he's going to age like fine wine, because as you can see at Inter Milan, the progress from Manchester United to Inter Milan, the amount of difference that has happened in Lukaku's game, only tells me that as he keeps on progressing as a player, the older he gets, he will just keep on aging well. So I'm not really going to say it's too much money by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, he doesn't have resale value, but you might do sell on StockX. So stop talking about that. You know what I mean? That's what people on Twitter have been saying. So that's just how I see it, man. I don't see this as an overpay. It's a lot of money, but we're not overpaying for anything. Absolutely not.
That's fair. I mean, just to put in the chat that the 12 million for Lukaku is net, you know, basically after tax, which is the money that Lukaku actually gets. Gross is over 300k. I feel like that's true of what I remember that Fabrizio Romano said, net 12 million. But even in that case, you still have to compare, because all the other numbers that we see all the time is also net salary, right? So you can't just out of nowhere pretend this is now for Lukaku, we use the gross number, but for everybody else, we use the, you know, after tax number. So you have to use the same number for everyone. And, you know, if the same number for everyone is, you know, for Manchester United players with 400k, like Paul Pogba, and we get Lukaku on under 200, then I don't think you can complain, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, I totally agree with both of you boys. And what I do want to touch on is something that you hinted on there with Lukaku in terms of how much we can get out of him. and I think I've mentioned this before. I can't remember whether it was on my channel or whether it was on Lewis's channel, but sometimes I feel like people forget how old some players are that do incredible things in football. Like 28 is not old in the slightest. Like, it's not old. Robert Lewandowski is 32 years old. That is 4 years from now for Lukaku. Just scored 41 Bundesliga goals in less than 30 appearances. 41 goals, less than 30 appearances. I'm not saying that Lukaku is as good or better or whatever than Lewandowski. That's not the comparison I'm trying to make. What I'm saying is, at 32, you can still break record after record after record, and you don't have to be Messi and Ronaldo to do so. You know, there's other players that do the same as well. Karim Benzema is now 33, and the season before last probably had his best ever season for Real Madrid. Obviously, his goal-scoring numbers were always going to go up after Ronaldo left, but the amount of responsibility he took on and how well he took that on at 32, at now 33, clearly you can get many, many years out of Lukaku. And do I think Lukaku is that much worse than, say, a Benzema? No. Like, in terms of goal-scoring output as a playmaking player that does more than just scoring goals, maybe it's not quite as good, sure. But, you know, that's a debate that doesn't really need to happen right now. What I'm saying is, you can comfortably get 4 or 5 good years out of him. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we have Lukaku now. He does really well for 2 years. Then we give him a contract extension just before he turns 30, give him an extra 2 years on that, which would take him then, I presume he's going to sign a 5-year contract now. That will take him to 33, probably give him a 2-year extension, and then sell him at 33, 34 for another 15, 20 million to somewhere, whether that's then to America, to China, to wherever the hell he might want to go. So even then, we probably still make, like I said, 20 million or so back. You're not done at 32 as a striker. Like, obviously, you don't want to sign the 32-year-old striker, but if you sign him at 28, you have a comfortable 4 or 5 years of absolute top-level football in them. And there's nothing telling you otherwise, in my opinion. I mean, sure, there's a couple of examples. Diego Costa, the man hasn't seen a football pitch in God knows how long. He's training on beaches in Brazil. But not everyone's Diego Costa. Sure, not everyone's Benzema, not everyone's Lewandowski. But if I was if I was a betting man and I had to put money on, will Lukaku end up having a long career, a long successful career, more like Lewandowski and Benzema, or will he end up on a Brazilian beach like Diego Costa? I think my money is on the Lewandowski route. But do you agree, Con, or do you think it is a case of, once they hit 31, 32, it's kind of like you have to seriously start thinking about the replacement already?
I just think it depends on the player. Because some players, when they do age, they're not good for it, and some are really good for it, And Lukaku's a massive athlete, he's an incredible athlete, and his mindset is he's got a killer mindset. So for someone like Lukaku, 31 is nothing, because how good of an athlete he is, Have you seen the guy? Come on, like, if you compare him to Lewandowski and Benzema, he's a much better athlete in terms of physique, in terms probably of his fitness levels. He's just a much better athlete. So he can play into, I don't know, he's 34, 35, I feel. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. And I don't know, people need to get out of their head that you can't sign a 28-year-old. That's them in their prime, You're signing the player in their prime. What's the issue there? I don't personally get it. So I don't think he's got an issue when he's 31 or 32 at all. We saw with Drogba, and I don't think Drogba was as good of an athlete as Lukaku is either. And we saw how long Drogba played for.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a shout. I'm not sure necessarily if he's a better athlete than Lewandowski. I mean, I've seen the guy. Sure, he's not as huge as Lewandowski, but as Lukaku. But that's very few people are genetically gifted enough to end up looking like Romelu Lukaku. Like, you can try no matter how hard you want. I'm never going to look like Romelu Lukaku. Tammy might, because he's 6'5", but I'm not. So we move. There you go. But let me just get this up. Can you see that already? No, you cannot just yet. Let me put it here. All right, if StreamYard wants to react, that would be handy. There we go. Fabrizio Romano just put on a new tweet. I thought I'd just show you rather than just reading it out. After first part of medical completed in Milan, Romelu Lukaku is now flying to London on a private jet in order to complete his move to Chelsea. Travel plan confirmed. Official announcement and unveiling this week. Lukaku joins Chelsea from Inter for 115 million euros. So maybe Nizar Kinsella got slightly ahead of himself, saying, he's already here, blah, blah, and, announcement might even happen tonight, and might happen at 8 p.m., whatever. This is what Fabrizio said. Let's see who's right. Even Fabrizio got a few things wrong this summer, which is as crazy as it sounds, I know. But what do you reckon, Dammy? Announcement tonight still? Announcement tomorrow? What are you feeling?
According to my sources at Tapping News, he's signing 8 p.m. We'll see the announcement.
And how much do you believe in those sources?
It's called Tapping News, mate. That's my new show. That's my source, bro. Ketchup, barbecue, and mayonnaise. We move bombastically, big man.
Well, you know, maybe you just turn up with real news from your news.
I mean, to be fair, I genuinely actually like, if I'm being serious, I expect an announcement at 8 o'clock. I genuinely do expect an announcement at 8 o'clock. Lukaku, that flight everybody was tracking, yeah, well, that was Lukaku's flight. Like I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Like FT already did all the work. Fabrizio is just putting on news there because he's trying to obviously take advantage of the fact that there's off traction at the moment, which is what he's supposed to do. So this is a bit old news, isn't it? You know, coming from, he's only just confirming that news by himself. Do you know what I mean? So he's already in London. Lukaku is in London. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to say how I know this, but
he's in London. All right. Let's see whether he is announced at 8 p.m. tonight. I'm still kind of hoping that he's not, so I can just do a stream tomorrow morning when he's announced. But hey, you know, it is what it is. As long as we sign him, I'm pleased. But we obviously, there's a few other things that we need to discuss here. I can't remember, I can't highlight it anymore now, I think. If I can find it. Where is it? There it is. Obviously, Con brought it up earlier with how much money we've kind of already, you know, made from sales this summer. And just to say it here, when we sell Tammy to Arsenal, we'll get to where Tammy potentially might go. The summer transfer business will pay for Lukaku's fee. And you can't really argue at that. And, you know, I am good mates with a Manchester United fan, and he always takes the piss out of our academy, and you never do anything, or not even takes the piss. He's almost annoyed that we don't do anything with all these players type thing. And I'm like, bro, you need to understand, the best of the best are meant to make it. The best of the best are in the squad at the moment, and the others will be sold to make money and allow us to sign big players without ending up like Barcelona, where we need to let our best players go because we can't pay them the wages. Sure, the Premier League doesn't have a wage cap like La Liga does, but, you know, that's why Premier League clubs don't end up like the La Liga clubs, because we don't pay players $1 million a week. And they pay that, or 500k a week, 600k a week. Like, they pay that to multiple players. Hazard is on nearly 500k at Real Madrid. What do you think Mbappe will be on if he ever goes to Real Madrid, especially as a free agent? Think about that. Bloody David Alaba. And, you know, David Alaba is Austrian, so obviously I like the guy. But while he's great, the man's on 400k a week at Real Madrid, plus getting 20 million on a sign-on fee. His dad got 10 million. His agent got 8 million. I know he's a free agent, but that's in stupendous money for a player like David Alaba. Do you know what I mean? And that's why we don't end up quite like them. But, ladies and gentlemen, just quickly before I put the next question to the boys, we have nearly 250 people watching. Big ups yourself for all of that. I do appreciate every single one of you. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers, so get subscribed. Every single one of you helps. So click the big red subscribe button. Honestly means the world to me. Also, hit the like button. Really helps me out, because the YouTube algorithm, it just needs the likes. I can't help it. I wish it was different, but you just need to click that button, and it really helps me out. It spreads these videos out to more people, and that's how us content creators grow. And of course, if you have any topics or any questions or whatever, and you want to make sure that I talk about them and highlight them, please do use the super chat function. You don't have to, but, you know, if you want to make sure that I read it and see it and blah, 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 do use it. But Dammy, aside from paying for Lukaku, and I'm sure we'll get back into Lukaku in the end anyway, like it rounds it off. Tammy Abraham, he's been linked to many places, to Arsenal, to Aston Villa until they signed Danny Ings, to West Ham, to Atalanta, to bloody AS Roma. And I want to start with AS Roma. Imagine Jose Mourinho signs Tammy Abraham. Wouldn't that be the most confusing signing in history of this sport?
I mean, this is Jose's thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Picking up players and doing stuff with them. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up signing for Roma and then he started doing bits. Do you know what I mean? He'll bully Tammy mentally enough until he breaks, and then he gets a good striker on the signs. Because let's not kid ourselves. As much as some people don't rate Tammy, and I'm not going to say that I've rated him the highest. Obviously, I've backed him in times of need, but Tammy Abraham is a decent striker, and he does have elements in his game where you can look at them and be like, yes, this guy has the ability to do stuff. He's got good pace on him, decent pace on him. Ball striking is really good. You know what I mean? Obviously, he needs to work on his finishing and placement. He needs to work on his aerial ability and upper body strength. He needs to work on certain things along those lines. But he definitely has areas in his game where things can be polished and be improved on massively. So, I mean, wherever club he goes to now, be it Roma, I'm hearing Arsenal links as well. If he goes to Arsenal, I won't be surprised, because I mean, spoiler alert, Tammy Abraham is an Arsenal fan, whether you didn't know this or not. So all those different clubs can happen. But him signing for Jose Mourinho would be interesting to see. It would actually be interesting to see. So Mourinho signing a striker like that, then that means he has plans for him. So as much as we might feel Mourinho is a bit washed and he's done this and done that, he's no longer the man he used to be, he could still make a striker of him, you know? Do you know what I mean?
He could. It's just not like Mourinho to bank on a young striker. Like, even, obviously this is 2 years ago now, but still, even 2 years ago when we played Lampard's first ever game at Old Trafford and we lost 4-0, and he was then talking about Tammy like he's not sure whether he'll be good enough to lead the line for Chelsea long term. And well, I suppose in the end Jose was proved right, I guess, but it's a bit weird after saying that albeit 2 years ago to now decide to sign it. But hey, I would have loved for him to go to Atalanta. First of all, I like Atalanta. Secondly, I think that would have been incredible for Tammy, but it seems like they aren't able to afford him. So Con, I know you said before you don't really care whether he goes to Arsenal or where he goes. It just matters that we make the money. But is there a limit? Because what's surprising to me is the fact the reports were a few days ago only that Atalanta were willing to pay 40 million euros. Was the problem Tammy's wages? Maybe either of you know what the problem was for Atalanta, or did we actually want more than 40 million euros and it needs to be 40 million pounds? That's the only thing I'm not sure about. Do you know any more about that, Con? Because I'm a bit disappointed that he can't go to Atalanta, if I'm honest.
I think it's because Inter are looking at Dzeko instead of Zapata. I think they was only going to sign Tammy if they could get Zapata. If Inter got Zapata, so it'd go like that, you know, domino effect.
Yeah, I can't lie. If Inter picked Dzeko over Zapata, that's a big L from Inter.
But yeah, they're a team that needs money, so Dzeko makes a bit more sense financially for them.
I suppose he's much cheaper. That is true. Yeah.
Now, for me, like, I'm not going to say too much on Tammy because I've said a lot on this channel already about Tammy. But I don't know. Like, I think he'll go off and he'll become a good striker. I don't think it'll be a player we ever regret selling at all. Do you know what? I'm just kind of sick of his face, to be honest. Like, as much as I've liked him over the years, and I've defended him on Twitter as well a lot. I think people tend to forget that out of most people, I've defended him a hell of a lot. But it's just his attitude, his ego. He thinks he's going to become something he's not. I'm just saying that how it is from what I've seen. There's too much he needs to progress in, I don't know, in the next 2 or 3 years for him to become elite, and he's just not going to do it. His aerial ability is horrible. Like I said, Tony from Brentford, watch him. He's going to be one of the best strikers in the league this season. And he's a guy who can use his height. He's powerful. He's quick. He's what people think Tammy can become. And Tony from Brentford, he's going to do it in the season or two.
Don't you think Tammy needs a bit more time, Lukaku?
But what time, bro? Like, bro, look how much he needs to improve. Don't get me wrong. He's like in the box. Like, what's it called? In the box fox or something like that.
In the box.
Yeah, he's a fox in the box, and when the ball's in the box, he can score a goal. Don't get me wrong, but he needs to improve his hold up. He needs to improve his balance. He needs to improve his aerial ability. You know what I mean? He needs to improve his runs. How many times have we seen them crosses go into the box and he doesn't get in the end of? There's just too much for him to improve to become elite level. That's why I said I think he'd become a good striker, and I think Europa League level sort of striker, maybe, I don't know, like a group stage to quarterfinal knockout striker for a Champions League club, maybe, but I don't see him ever becoming like a Lukaku. And when I see that comparison, like where people say we're going to buy Tammy back for 100 million, it just makes me laugh because I just don't see Tammy ever becoming a. And sorry if people don't like hearing that, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm going to be right. It's just how I see things.
Respect to the same, bro. But like for me, I think one of this situation, like, I mean, I've chosen personally not to sort of because obviously, like, I hear where you're coming from in terms of Tammy and looking at his ceiling. Like, out of all the players that are around him, Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, all the younger sort of players in and around his surroundings, I don't think he's necessarily got the highest ceiling. But for players that are like 23, 22 years old, they've still got a bit of time to progress quite significantly. Lukaku, for example, I'm not comparing Tammy Abraham and Lukaku by any stretch of the imagination, but at the end of the day, Lukaku was at Man United and obviously was banging in goals, but was having similar problems in the sense. And when I mean similar problems, I don't mean heading or whatever, physical ability or any of that. I'm just talking about very basic things that you would not expect them to fix on United. For example, he scored quite a lot of goals, but then his build-up play was quite bad. His dribbling was not really good. His passing was below average. But now look at Lukaku just a few years later. There's a lot of time and ability, and there's a chance for players like this to improve. Nobody in their right mind would have thought we would be signing Lukaku for about 96 to 100 million pounds. this year? Absolutely nobody. But that progression in this game, there's always a chance. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that Lukaku and Tammy are on the same level, and I definitely agree with when you say that he's not necessarily got the highest ceiling, but I don't think I am not going to jump to any conclusions on how far he's going to go in it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's always chance to improve, especially if you're isolated and not all eyes are consistently looking at you. So
no, yeah, bro, you're spot on there. And you know what? In the next 2-3 years, Tammy could progress massively. And you know what? I've got egg on my face, and he becomes a real hot like prospect in Europe. But I just don't see it, man. I just feel like when Lukaku left us, he had a lot more attributes going for him. You know, he looked a bit more of a better player at that time. And I know Tammy's been our top goal scorer for the last 2 seasons. Not ignoring that at all, because it's a valid point. But then look at the context of that, and then you'll see maybe it's not as much of an achievement as some people make it out to be either. Because I saw someone put that in the comments. Like when Jorginho's our top goal scorer in the PL last season, you know, this team isn't full of goals. There's not a consistent player scoring. So Tammy being on top of that, it doesn't surprise me. Then you got to think, how many goals did Tammy score against Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal? He scored what, 1 goal against Arsenal? I don't think he scored against Tottenham. So all them goals were coming against inferior opposition. And I don't know. I like Tammy as well. It's like I like him as a player, but I don't like him at an elite club level, sort of at a Chelsea or United. Maybe that's why I say you can go to Arsenal. You can have a good career there. I don't care. I don't see him progressing Arsenal that much where I feel like, I don't know, they're going to become anything good with Tammy, you know? I think they'll still be around the same level. He just adds a few more goals to them. Because we saw what Aubameyang did for Arsenal, and he didn't really improve him that much, and he was the top goal scorer for like 2 seasons, wasn't
he? Yeah, but that's where career path and like that's what I'm saying. So like that's where your career path, where you choose to go, how you choose to improve. That's when all those things matter. Because Aubameyang, the influence and impact he would have had at Chelsea would have been far more significant than what he's had at Arsenal. Because we all know the history of the Arsenal. Arsenal is not necessarily a big team no more. I don't consider them to be a big team no more. Top 6 side in history. But as of right now, their teams are better than them. Leicester is the better club than Arsenal right now. Do you know what I mean? Tottenham, you could argue, a better club than Arsenal right now. There's so many clubs that are better than Arsenal at the moment. So I wouldn't necessarily compare them in any way, shape, or form. So it really all boils down to 2 things. It depends on how much Tammy wants to prove people around him wrong. And it also depends on the sort of clubs that he goes to progress his career. If he goes to Arsenal, for me, that's a roadblock in it. He's just trying to stay in the Premier League so he can chill with his family, which is valid. Want to stay in London, want to chill with your families, to want to have access to them, have access to your friends. That's perfectly understandable. Do you know what I mean? I could probably do the same thing. But if he's smart, thinks about it, probably goes to another team along the likes of a Roma that wants him, or Atalanta. Go to Italy, work on your game in silence, away from the cameras. Why do you think Steven Gerrard versus Frank Lampard didn't really last long as a debate? Because Lampard got into a very big job where people are consistently watching. Look at Gerrard, he's building a legacy all the way over. I forgot the name of the team's manager, but at the end of the day, he's going to come out and he's going to come along. Rangers in it, yeah, Rangers. So you've got Tammy Abraham who can potentially, it all depends on how much or what team he ends up going to. Do you know what I mean? It really depends on how he decides to build his career path, because Tammy Abraham goes to a club silent, okay, does his craft for 3 years. When he's 26, a lot of people might end up wanting him. So yeah.
No, you know what, Dammy? I really respect that point. And I think him going to Arsenal really does less for him than if he goes to Syria. I totally agree with that 100%.
It's an interesting, because I kind of agree with both of you guys, because I do, you know, as much as what Dammy says is 100% correct, and you don't always, you know, see the full potential with the player in the early years, and it can surprise you. But there's only a handful of examples of that happening. The majority of examples is you see someone at 24, the age of Tammy, and you say, are they good? Are they not? And you kind of, if you understand a little bit of football, you get a rough idea of how good they're going to get. Tammy will get better, but unless he does something surprising to me, he's not going to be ever as good as, say, Lukaku, or quite good enough to be like a striker to win you the Premier League, to win you the Champions League, to be the leading, you know, the man to lead the line. That doesn't mean he can't score loads of goals, because the one thing Tammy Abraham is fantastically good at is scoring goals. The problem is the things around it. It's almost like the opposite. Well, not the opposite, but kind of the opposite of Timo Werner, who's good at a lot of things aside from scoring goals. Well, he also can't dribble and pass and control the ball, but, you know, at least he makes runs that are helpful. But you get what I mean. Like, Tammy does do things that are really good. I would personally, obviously this is not going to happen, but I've said this many times, I would personally love it if Tammy was to stay around as a second choice striker. I think he'd be fantastic for that. Obviously, he doesn't want to do that, and that's absolutely fair enough. It's his career, it's his life, and he should have, the power to do what he wants to do. That's totally brilliant. But I think it's just not quite good enough. And maybe he proves us wrong. Maybe he doesn't. But if we want to win things now, we need someone different. And if he doesn't accept being second choice, that's why we are in this situation of signing Lukaku and probably selling Tammy Abraham. I brought it up a minute ago, but we wanted to finish this conversation first. Fabrizio Romano has then, in responses to other people, basically said that Lukaku has just left the airport in Milan, being on the way. Like I said, some people saying he's in London. Fabrizio now saying he's on the way. Who knows? I suppose we'll find out at 8 whether something happens. But even if something doesn't happen at 8, how football Twitter works. Then they'll say, "Oh, it's going to be at 9. It's going to be at 10," and only at 10, maybe 11, will people give up and say, "Okay, it's going to be tomorrow." So let's see how that one ends up, because it's a tough one.
Before we move to the subject, Lawrence, can I just ask you one question?
Of course.
If you removed Kai Havertz from our Champions League campaign and we started Tammy in that striker role next to Fernand, do you think we would have won the Champions League?
Say that again.
So remove Havertz when he was playing striker, or the false 9 for Chelsea in the Champions League, and put Tammy there instead. Do you think Chelsea win the Champions League?
In just the final?
No, for the whole thing. From the knockout stages onwards.
No.
Dammy?
Bro, the thing is, for me, I'm going to say no, but you never know, innit? Do you know what I mean? Nobody would have put money on Torres scoring that goal in 2012, innit? You know what I mean? Yeah. But
I think
probably not.
And I think that's the issue with Tammy there. Is despite how much Kai struggled in his first season, he still showed up when it matters. And I think deep down, all of us really know when them big moments come, Tammy probably isn't the guy for us.
Yeah, I probably agree. Let me just get this up for you guys as well. There is a video of Lukaku at the airport, whether this was taken right now or whether this is a little while ago. This I don't know. There's also a quote that I just saw Simon Phillips, basically Lukaku saying greetings to the Inter fans that wanted me to stay. I'll put out a message in a few days type thing. I'm presuming that's what he's saying there, but yeah. So let's see when he comes. I'm excited. But there's a few other people that I really want to discuss, because I just, obviously my love for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, everyone knows about it. So I just ask you the question, Dammy. Does Ruben stay this season or does he not?
Bro, I'm not getting excited. Do you know what I mean? I'm definitely not getting excited. People are on the TL making their arts, Ruben, clap them cheeks, and Ruben, lube them cheeks, whatever the hell. People are excited, masturbating, wanking off, seeing him training. Everybody's looking at his waves. They're looking at his fresh trim from London barbers or whatnot. But people, calm your tits, relax. We're going to see it. I'm not going to get too excited, but if Ruben actually does stay on this season, I will be a very happy individual. This is a player whose career progressed really nicely under Maurizio Sarri. And unfortunately, due to that stupid tournament we had to attend, got unfortunately injured. I had to go out on loan. He didn't have the best of loan spells at Fulham. So I wouldn't think anybody at Stamford Bridge, you, myself, Con, whatever, I don't think anybody would have actually sat down and thought that would have an opportunity to see Loftus-Cheek. But if he actually does stay, because he's been registered for the Super Cup game, so let's see what progresses. Obviously, there's still quite a bit of time before the end of the transfer window. And obviously, like we've seen Chelsea's transfer list that consists of Barkley, Bakayoko. Loftus-Cheek is not on that list for learning or for transfers either. So I'm curious to see how things unfold this one. I'll be really excited to see him play quite a few games. I don't know how Tuchel is going to fit him into this 11, because he's more of a progressive number 8. You've got a Mount, you've got Havertz, you've got players that can sort of do not what he does, because Loftus-Cheek is a unique midfielder. But I'm curious to see how this unfolds. I want to see how Tuchel plays this one, because Tuchel is a very flexible manager, tactically supreme, tactically intelligent. So I'm a bit excited, innit? Try not to be, but I am a bit excited to see what happens with Loftus-Cheek this season.
No, exactly. And the only small downer that happened to me, obviously today we got confirmed that he is included in the Super League squad, Super Cup squad, sorry. But unless this information was wrong a couple of days ago, in the squad a couple of days ago that we had initially registered or filed or whatever, he wasn't in. So today Chalobah and Romelu Lukaku got added. So now I'm like, well, so you weren't sure whether you would take him. So that sounds like maybe he will still be loaned out or sold. So I don't know. I would love it. Like I've explained it before. I think I'm like Dammy. If we stick to the formation, especially, I'm not really sure where you'd play him, especially if you want to start him. But to have him as a sub, I think he can solve a lot of problems that we have. You know how often late in games, how we've taken off Mount or Werner and brought Kovacic on to create a midfield three, just to be a bit more solid towards the end of the game. You know how sometimes Tuchel said, yeah, we started Alonso, so we have a bit of extra height in our team. Ruben solves both of those issues in one. First of all, it means you never have to play Alonso again, which is always fantastic news. And, you have a player that is a little bit more offensive while still bringing a third midfielder in than Kovacic if you want to, make it a midfield three late in the game type thing. So, that is that. I mean, I suppose I need to bring it up. The Undertaker saying here, ESPN has said that Chelsea have matched PSG's contract offer to Lionel Messi. You guys need to just get this Messi to Chelsea stuff out of your head. It's just not going to happen.
It's not happening, man. Relax. It's not happening. Undertaker, go bury Kane or something. It's not happening, bro. That news is down deep and buried 6 foot. You should know this, big man. You've been burying people for 30 years. You should know.
Brilliant. Love that.
Nice.
This is the Dammy I was missing for months on this channel. This is it. Love that. Josh asking here that we're letting Barkley go. Can we confirm? I mean, I can confirm that someone. Who was it? Was it Nizar?
He's been transfer listed, yeah.
Yeah. That Bakayoko, Barkley, Zapacosta, and Abraham, was it? Or was it somebody else?
Drinkwater,
that was it. I don't think Tammy was actually on that list. These guys have all been transfer listed. Whether anyone actually comes in and signs them is a whole different discussion. So, first we need anyone to come in and pay the money that we want, which is at Chelsea often the problem with selling players, that we want too much money. If we didn't want as much money, we could have sold Alonso and Emerson every week for the last 3 years if we wanted to, but we always wanted too much money, so that's why they're still here. And I'm still baffled by the fact that we still have 3 left backs. But oh well, it is what it is. One last thing that I want to put you, and I do apologize, Con, that I'm putting a lot of questions to Dammy, just because I know your opinions on a lot of these things, but I haven't really heard them of Dammy yet. Obviously, always interrupt us, jump in if you have anything to add. But I will get back to you in just a second. But Dammy, obviously, another player that we've been heavily linked with this summer is Jules Kounde from Sevilla. Obviously, a centre-back, quite short at 5'10". We'll ask you what would you think of that, especially as a man at 6'5". What do you think of people that are 5'10"? As centre-backs, especially. Do you think that would be a good signing, or how do you see that?
For me, I'm going to start off this my comments on Kounde by stating that I've watched less than 500 minutes of the player. I'm not one of those people that come out and act like they know quite a lot about somebody when they haven't really watched too much. So I've not watched too much of Kounde, at least not enough to what I would consider to be enough to be knowledgeable on the player. But from what I've seen, Kounde, that height thing is not too much. It's not something we should be worried about. For context, Thiago Silva is about 2 cm taller. For context, that 5'10" just doesn't look as pen in it. I'm coming from 5'10" and 6.
No, but would you want 2 Thiago Silvas next to each other in the back 4?
Yeah, you might not want 2 Thiago Silvas next to them in the back 4, but you need to remember we play a back 3 sometimes, innit? Do you know what I mean? So you obviously
back 3 is fine.
Do you know what I mean? You've got the flexibility of having a player that could be, you could have short and tall. There are many rotations we could potentially have. You have Rudiger who could provide some form of height. Christensen isn't too tall, is he? How tall is Christensen? Is he 6'2", 6'3"? Not entirely sure. Colin could probably help him with that one if he knows it offside. But at the end of the day, for me, Kounde, £50 million. Obviously, Zuma would be leaving the club as well, so that's not too much money being spent. 22 years old, had an excellent season for Sevilla. Had very, very good statistics when it comes to clearing the ball control, ball progression.
The statistics.
Statistics, you get me? Statistics. Had excellent statistics for Sevilla this season. And one of the more interesting stats he definitely did have was the fact that he won greater than I'm sorry, you guys fact check me on this, but he won over 70% of his aerial duels. despite being one of the people that's in the league. Obviously, a lot of people can counterbalance that by saying in La Liga, they don't really put too many balls in the air, and in the Premier League, they might counterbalance that, but he won quite a significant number of aerial duels. So it's not something I'm necessarily too worried about, you know what I mean? Because he comes in, Guehi was sold 20 million, you know what I mean? Guehi was not the tallest guy in the shop, and we all wanted him to start as well. Zuma had been leaving the club. That's quite a bit of money gained. So it's not really too much. It's something that we actually need to do. We need to get a centre-back. And right now, in world football, I can't think of too many other centre-backs at this age that are doing what Kounde has done. Obviously, he's got like the fat afro, and everybody thinks he looks like a Willian regen. Please, let's not do that. I'm not trying to see Willian in the back line. But once again, you've got Kounde, and I think it would be a decent signing. I couldn't think of anyone else that we could potentially bring in that could do a job. And you need to remember, he could play on the right side. He could do something on the left. He could also potentially do a job at the right wing back position. Not necessarily like he did that enough at Sevilla, but he did it once or twice, did it quite a few times. So it will be interesting to see where he sort of lines up, but it will be a useful signing for us, you know, I'm coming from. So yeah.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, obviously, I think we've spoken about Kounde before, but anything you want to add to that? Because the reports are that he's the guy that we're going to go after once the Lukaku stuff is finally over the line. So, you know, I'd be happy for it, but I will also say this, you know, if you ask me, say, on, you know, the day after the Champions League final, which position do I want us to sign a player? Obviously, all of us would have said striker, and my number 2 priority would have been a midfielder. Not because I don't think our midfielders are good enough, but because I think we need a different option midfielder that we don't currently have. Whether it's Rice, whether it's whoever, but I would like to have a proper DM. Not a proper DM to start every day or every game. That's not what we need, because Jorginho and Kante and Kovacic are absolutely brilliant midfielders in a large majority of games. But every now and again, you do notice that we could do with a bit of a taller DM there, with a stronger DM there, with a slightly quicker DM there. So I still feel like we lack that, rather more so than we lack a centre-back, especially a centre-back that's probably going to be competing with Aspie at right centre-back, where Aspie, let's be honest, is still very good at. So I don't think we're in desperate need for Kounde, but Kounde instead of Zuma, it's a serious upgrade. So I'm not going to complain if Chelsea do go ahead with it.
I think Kounde is actually, there's a big need for Kounde, to be honest, because Thiago Silva's age, he can't play every game. Rudiger wants a big contract and be one of the highest earners at the club. Whether Chelsea pay that or not, we shall see. Suma's going. So Asby's getting on now. So I think there is a need for Kounde. And it's nice to see the club sort of planning ahead for a change, instead of when these players do get of age or in a position where we can't play them anymore, and then we have to desperately sign someone for a ridiculous fee who isn't adequate. We're planning ahead where, all right, we've got a great back line for now, but if we get Kounde, we can mix him in with the lot, and then when Thiago Silva retires or plays elsewhere, when Zuma goes, if we don't want to give Rudiger a new contract, we've got that option there in Kounde. So I think it's brilliant planning from the Chelsea board. And with the DM stuff, bro, I don't think that's true at all, like having a natural DM, because if you look at every big game we played under Tuchel, we didn't lose. We didn't lose one big game. It was all against.
No, but I didn't say we need it for the big games. I need it for the physical games where we get outmuscled in the midfield too much.
That's not the issue. The them problems in them games, we concede fairs, but we don't score enough in those games. And that's why we're signing Lukaku. And he's a perfect striker. Do you remember when he was in the Prem, and we always used to say he stat pads against the small teams? Do you know what? We actually need that, you know.
I 100% agree with that, but sorry to interrupt you, but just because we have a striker that can now score doesn't mean I'm happy to concede 1 or 2 goals against small teams.
That's always going to happen, though, regardless.
No, it isn't. That's the point.
Yes, it is. Man City conceded 2 against Leeds, and they played.
But not against every team. I'm not saying you can never concede 2, but I'm saying you make it less of a regular occurrence.
But we had one of the best defensive records under Tuchel than Guardiola did, than Oli did, even Simone, you know, and you know how Simone plays. So this for the desperate need for that deal. Don't get me wrong, I get where you're coming from. It would be nice to have one, you know. It would be nice to have one, but if we don't get one this summer, I'm J5 every day, you know. Like this Declan Rice nonsense, like I don't entertain that, because, you know, he's not Nemanja Matic. I feel like that's the profile people want, is like a Nemanja Matic. And I don't think Rice is that, because he's nowhere near the quality on the ball as Nemanja Matic was, you know. I think he was really one of our best players for a long time, and people didn't see that. And now we don't have a Nemanja Matic profile in our team. People realise, damn, this guy was better than what we actually thought. Don't know why we sold him to United and got Bakayoko, but that's another story for another stream, I guess. But yeah, back to where it is about Kounde. Yeah,
I mean,
great
I want
signing.
to touch on that midfield talk as well, to be honest, because like technically, it comes back to that conversation we had a bit earlier on. Like Matic, once again, we had Matic. We all know how that ended in 2010. Had to go in the opposite direction for David Luiz because skill set wise, wasn't necessarily the best player. For me, Declan Rice as a player, I like Rice as an individual, and I like some of the things he does on the pitch. I'm not going to necessarily say that he is the be-all, end-all, 100% perfect solution at Chelsea Football Club. I would never say that. If you see my tweets, if you advance search me, you see I've actually even made comments with regards to how much it's potentially going to cost now, how good I think it could be for Chelsea. But with Declan Rice, once again, do I think he's potentially going to move across this summer? No. But to answer that talk on the DM, my thing is this year we need to remember that Jorginho, Kante, both adding 1 year to their ages. Do you know what I mean? They are getting slower as well. We're going to need to have the midfielder. And we need to sign the midfielder. Maybe not necessarily GM. Obviously, we're linked to all DMs are going to have some form of flexibility, but we definitely need a midfielder this season, in my opinion, where things can be flexible. Because if one of Jorginho or Kante get injured, we're going to have a very sticky time this season. Look at what happened to Liverpool last year, where Virgil van Dijk crashed out because of his injury. Their whole season went to complete shit. And one thing we need to make sure we do sort out is our midfield so that we can make sure one key part of Chelsea's game is ball retention. We need players. And I know I mentioned ball retention and you start thinking, oh, Declan Rice, he's not necessarily someone that you put in the same sentence as ball retention, even though I think he did it quite decently for England. But we definitely do need a midfielder in one way, shape, or form. They mentioned Chouameni, they mentioned Declan Rice. And Con, I don't know who your choice is, but for me, I don't mind who we get because I'm a strong believer of and this is for me, and I've said this about myself many times on many streams. I am a strong believer of if I don't have a solution to something, a problem, then I just have to go with what other people have said. You know, I'm coming from. So Declan Rice, Chouameni, if they're both going for a good amount of money, then I can't really complain. The only complaint I sort of have to have is their ages. I feel like they're both younger. They've not really progressed that far in their careers. And if one of those players get injured in midfield at Chelsea, then there'll be a massive gap, and it will be a massive step up that if they crash, you can't really blame them for because of their aging. So I don't know what your take on that sort of what my opinion is there.
So to be fair, my option would be Laurenz, if you thought there.
No,
my option would be for this season, just because there isn't a clear Declan Rice isn't happening, right? Too many young player of the thingy, but my option would be to keep Trevor Chalobah and Loftus-Cheek in the squad because Chalobah can play in midfield and so can Loftus. And then next season we can get Gilmour and see where he's at, whether he's ready for Chelsea or not, if he needs another loan or not, and then buy that player to replace a Jorginho because he's going to be, I don't know, a bit too old then maybe next season, you know? That'd be what I would do for this season because we got Lukaku and that's what we desperately needed. And then we're adding the depth with Chalobah and Loftus-Cheek. And I know you'd be big fans of that because Loftus-Cheek. And then next season we can really, I don't know, evaluate and look at top targets because for me, I don't know many top DMs out there right now. And the only one that people really talk about is Declan Rice. So unless the Chelsea scouting department there have identified a few targets, I don't think even they know some great holding players right now. So I'd wait until next year for that and just keep Trevor Chalobah and Loftus-Cheek in the squad. You know, that covers our depth.
I hear that, but once again, like even based on the news reports that I'm seeing, the thing is, my issue is just the ages, and this season is really critical because we need to win the league this year. We don't do more than 3 years without winning the league, and I want us to be filled with depth in every possible element we can do. Chelsea already, obviously, I think this is a 9 out of 10 window as long as we sign Lukaku and Kounde in it. Those are the two signings we more or less made. For me, that would be a very good window because we need a striker. In midfield, I hear where you're coming from because we don't necessarily aggressively, urgently need a midfielder. But if anything goes wrong, this is relying on those midfielders consistently playing at a very fit level. Jorginho is going to be 30. Kante is going to be 31. Kante's injury record across the years has been going down. The amount of games that 2 years ago, for context, Kante played in about 90% of the games he played in. The next season, he played in about 45. So Kante is starting to regress in the amount of games he can actually play per season. Jorginho, not necessarily the most physical player, doesn't really get injured that often, but what happens if he does get injured? This is what happened to Liverpool with Virgil van Dijk. And if free kick can come out of nowhere, and we need to make sure that, because let's keep it a buck. If one of those midfielders do get injured, okay, we will be shagged next year. We will be shagged. And our possibility of us winning that Premier League title, okay, would have reduced quite by a significant amount because you're going to need to rely on, let's say, God forbid, let's say Jorginho gets in, God forbid. Kante and Kovacic need to play Premier League games. They need to play other games as well. You mentioned Loftus-Cheek, you mentioned Chalobah. Chalobah, you don't really have any experience at all. I'd rather have a Tchouaméni or a Declan Rice in it. Obviously, they mentioned that Trevor Chalobah could be going out on loan because Tuchel obviously ready to play relatively highly. So he wants him to come back next season. He wants him to go out and get that experience. As for Loftus-Cheek in the midfield too, maybe Tuchel can make it work. Tuchel can make many things work. He made a lot of things work last season, but I don't really see that happening because there will be a lot of balance in there. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel for my safety, for my confidence, for my wants, and seeing what's happened to the likes of Liverpool and other teams, I would like us to just get a midfielder in that would at least give us an option if one of those guys get injured. Do you get what I mean? A DM is the last sort of dynamic we don't necessarily have. And I'm okay to see, what if none of these guys get injured and we sign the Tchouaméni or Declan Rice? That means they only play like 20% of games. I don't mind. They get experience. They're watching things going on. As for Billy Gilmore, Jorginho, Kante, they're getting older. So Gilmore's like 19. He's got a few more years before he needs to be injected into the first team. So the ages, I'm not really worried. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really worried. All I'm worried about now is the fact that we're pushing for a title charge against one of the best teams, arguably the most stacked team in world football, which is City. So we need to be on our P's and Q's for 38 games.
That's exactly, and I do want to touch on a couple of things here. And I'm just surprised that Con said you think we need a centre back more than a midfielder because we currently have three like genuine first team midfielders. Sure, Ruben, Chalobah, if you want to mention those, but three genuine ones, right? When you think of centre backs, I know Thiago Silva turns 37 next month, but even then we have Thiago Silva, Rudiger, Christensen, Zuma. I know you don't rate Zuma, but still we have him. And Azpilicueta and Reece James who can play centre-back. That gives us 6 centre-backs for 3 positions. While for 2 midfield positions, we have 3 genuine players. While the team that Tammy just touched on, we are genuinely competing against, they don't play midfield 2, they play more of a midfield 3. But their midfielders is Rodri, Fernandinho, Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan, Phil Foden if you want to put him in that position. God knows who else they can put into that midfield role. Like, they have such a stacked midfield. If we want to compete with that, like Dami said, one injury that if it's not for too long, we can compensate with Kovacic. That's fine. But, and why I'm saying I think we need a DM type player rather than a Tchouaméni, who I see more as a Kante type player, is because we have Jorginho, who is the DM in our system, right? And we have Kante and Kovacic, who are the more aggressive of the two. So to make it even, to have 2 for that, I need one that does more of what Jorginho does. Whether it's exactly like Jorginho does in terms of ball retention and blah, 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 or whether it's someone a bit more physical, I would personally prefer slightly more physical just to give us that option when you need it in a game. Because sometimes you're watching a Chelsea game and you're like, we're getting outdone in midfield here. We need someone stronger here. And then I want us to have the option to bring that type of player off the bench. And I think to genuinely challenge City, I think we need that personally. And I mean, Tuchel seems to see Chalobah as a centre-back with the reports today that he wants to include him in the squad next season and wants to send him out on loan playing as centre-back this season. I don't really see Chalobah as that much of a midfielder. I know he played there in the youth days, but as far as I'm aware, at Lorient in Ligue 1 last season, he played as a centre-back for the most part. Correct me if I'm wrong, please do. And Ruben, you know more than anybody else how much I love Ruben, but he's not a 6 that I want if we have injuries to be starting 6-7 games in a row in that position, like at all. Like, I love him, but not here. Do you know what I mean? Like, not in that role as a starter. That's why I just think we need a midfielder. And when it ends up, like, we will definitely sign a midfielder. Let's not kid ourselves. We will sign one, probably Tchouaméni, but let's see. But I would just prefer someone a tad more physical, personally. But hey, a bit like what Dami said for Kounde, even more so in the case of Tchouaméni, I've seen Tchouaméni probably played 3 times. Well, probably a few more times, but 2 or 3 times where I've paid any sort of attention to him rather than just watching a random Monaco game, not paying specific attention to anybody. So I'm not the perfect expert. I'm friends with a guy that works for Red Bull Salzburg, and that they played against Monaco the other week or a few weeks ago. And he said, Tchouaméni is a player and a half. I'm telling you, like, he's real good. So he had like proper, eyes on type vision on him, and I trust him usually with his football opinions. So fair play, but I still feel like we definitely need a midfielder, that's for sure. But I don't want to get too hung up. Of course, guys, if you want to add anything, both of you, Dammy, Con, if you have anything to add, please do. Otherwise, I'll get to a couple of things that I've seen here in the chat.
No, I think you're right there. We do need a midfielder. Just my biggest worry is just I don't really know who there is for that holding role, like you suggest, besides Declan Rice.
You're not wrong. I mean, someone in the chat here said Ndidi, but
yeah,
people also need to get Ndidi out of their heads, though. Like he's going to be so expensive to get out of Leicester.
That's not happening. Do you see how much Leicester literally they should be arrested for daylight fraud because these brothers, you know how much money they charge for that? Fam, see how much they charge for Maguire, drink water, freaking all these brethren. Madison, fam, if you're going to get Ndidi off them without spending 80 M's at least.
Yeah.
Even with Rice, to be fair, because West Ham on like 80 M's and Chelsea are not going to sort of pay that money. So it's a bit of a shit fest. Sorry for cursing, but at the end of the day, that's just how it is. So for me, it's a difficult situation, but I'm not going to. That's why for me, whatever we sign in midfield, as long as it's not like a Danny Drinkwater plug signing, it needs to be signing with purpose in it. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be someone that can come in and at least do a job a couple of times. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a bit of a worry. That's my one worry. That could be Chelsea's one Achilles heel, innit? No, not this season. No. I love Ampadu to the highest heavens. You can check my tweets and my channel for propaganda consistent, innit? I've even said Ampadu over Rice in the past. Please, let's not do that this season. He's not ready.
No, I agree. But it's a tough one. The last thing I want to bring up here before we round it out in a minute is this little discussion here. I think we can all agree on the 9 players that I put in, except Lewis will obviously say Christensen. But, we have Mendy in goal, Rudiger, Silva. If Silva's fit, he starts. And then Kounde, Aspie, who knows, right? Chilwell, Reece James, I think we're all pretty confident. Jorginho and Kante is probably our best midfield 2 for most games. And Lukaku up top. But I have seen a lot of debate between a lot of people. I thought this is very kind of nailed on. But I've seen a lot of debate about who these 2 players should be. So I'll go with you first, because I can't remember if we've discussed it before already or if that was with somebody else. But who would be those 2 players? I mean, knowing you, I know this one's going to be Kai, right? This one's going to be Kai.
Yes.
And I strongly presume this one's going to be Mount, right?
I don't know about if it's going to be Mount.
I get you. You're saying Pulisic?
I don't even know if it's going to be Pulisic.
You're saying it's going to be Dope?
Bro, I know I want.
You're saying it's going to be Ziyech?
I know I want Lukaku and Kai in the attack together for that third spot. You guys have to help me out here. I have no idea who I'd want there. Just what would work more than anything. Because would Mount, Havertz, and Lukaku work fluidly? I know I said in the last stream that it could, but would a Cho or a Pully work better there? Would a Ferner work better there? Would a Ziyech work better? I don't know.
I haven't even mentioned Werner. Unfortunate. I can't lie to you. I have the same tiny worry that Mount, Havertz, Lukaku is a bit too static. Yeah. And Mount is agile. And I'm not saying Kai isn't, but they're just, he's tall and he's more elegant rather than this, agile, chip, chop, chop, go doing a slalom through defenders. It's not what he's going to do. Mount can do it, but not to an extent of like a Hudson-Odoi or Pulisic. So that's my only slight worry. This is why I'm bringing it up. I'm just making a discussion. I would love it to be Mount, Kai, and Lukaku and work. That's my 3 favorite players of those, options we have, I suppose. But I'm not 1,000% convinced how well it works. What do you think, Dammy?
But this is why you guys are making mistakes. Why do Chelsea play so good? They play with the rotation and the pockets of space and everybody rotates with. They're so wide and on the real note. This is genuine.
I can't put him further wide than this, mate.
see, Laurenz, bro, I would put Cho there. If Havertz playing it, I'd put Cho there.
But genuinely, this is why Chelsea plays so good. Because we've got so many different rotations. We've got so many different pockets that these players can. Obviously, I know I'm mocking Guardiola, but I'm being genuine at the same time. There are so many different pockets of space where all of these players can utilize. There are so many different orientations that Chelsea could potentially play. You could play. You could see. You're talking about Mount. We've sort of limited this talented squad to that formation you've chucked on the screen. Not like this is the natural formation Chelsea will end up playing, and I'm guessing I'm just talking about this formation specifically, but there could be situations where you've got Lukaku, Werner up front, and you've got Havertz liaising in behind. If you've got a game where there's going to be a lot more runners in midfield and you want Jorginho's capability to hold on to the ball, I can see where Havertz sits on the bench for Mason Mount, because Mason Mount can occupy those spaces in behind the halfway line, and then he's going to be able to make those track backs quick on time. You've got Werner and Lukaku up front. There are so many different rotations. You can see a world where you've got Lukaku not even playing at all, because you can have a false line of Havertz. You can have Mason Mount Ziyech right in behind him. You can have Callum Hudson-Odoi playing in that wing-back position as well. You can also see a world where you play a 4-2-4, where you've got two solid midfielders. I'd see that if we had the DM, but let's see how things are for. Tuchel is a crazy guy. You can have Pulisic, you can have Callum Hudson-Odoi, you can have Lukaku and Havertz sort of dangling around. There are so many different rotations. There are so many different ways that we can use this team. So I don't think it's interesting to talk about now, because obviously the next game that we're going to be playing is against Villareal. We're all curious to see how we're going to line up. But obviously that's Lukaku aside. And the Crystal Palace is the main game when you see Lukaku for the first time. Everyone is wondering how we're going to line up. But for me, don't be shocked to see a lineup that sees James on the bench to quick Callum up to the door, so you can have a bit more width in it. Because I think Tuchel is going to play Mason Mount in midfield. I think Chilwell and Callum up to the door are going to be the wing backs, and you're going to see Mason Mount play with Havertz, rotating consistently, and Lukaku is probably going to bang up front in it. You know what I'm saying? So it really depends on the style of game we're going to go up against. The Crystal Palace is a team where we can play expansive, quick football. They're not going to sit back and just defend all the time in it. So you don't really need to have multiple strikers playing off each other. So it's a flexibility thing. Do you know where I'm coming from? It's a it's a flexible thing. So I'm just curious to see how Tuchel does it. Even a 4-2-2, I completely forgot about that. You could do that. No, I said that already, didn't I? But yeah. Even the 4-2-2, I forgot about that. So there are so many different ways this thing can go down. I'm quite interested to see how it happens in it. Do you know what I mean? And this is where the DM talk also comes in, because you get a DM as well. Well, you've got the most flexible team in world football. That's an unpopular opinion, but I stand by it.
I mean, I agree in general with what you're saying. Let me just put it up like that so I can, let me just turn it into Mount so it's not this massive, long thing basically. But if obviously we can play many different formations, but I still think you need to go off a likelihood of having one kind of main formation that we rotate out of depending on opponent. Like, I do agree with you that we will change formation more this year than we did last season under Tuchel, but I still do believe that there's going to be one main formation, if that makes sense. And I still do think that is going to be the 3-4-3. It's just, I don't know. I can't have him twice, can I? That'd be slightly illogical. Who am I missing that's obvious in this team right now?
I don't think I'm missing anything, mate.
Wait.
Joe, maybe? I'm just putting someone here. Have it like that. Of course, you can play a 4-2-2 like that. You 100% can. But to be honest, I wouldn't even be that much of a fan of Kai and Lukaku up top, because I feel like it's so pointless to have two left-foot players. Surely, if you play two, you need one right foot, one left foot, in my opinion, anyway. But 100%, what Dami said is 100% spot on. I still do feel like there's going to be one formation that we go off of the most. I just don't know. I just don't know who the two behind Lukaku are going to be, because Mount started in pretty much every game under Tuchel, right? Like, he was pretty much undroppable. With how good all of us think Havertz is going to be this season, let alone in years to come, he is also undroppable. So then what do you do? That's basically what I'm getting at. Also, Pulisic now joined Puma. That's always a big L. Yeah. So, maybe he can't start anymore.
Like, Laurenz, just spot on with that. Like, we're still going to play 3-back for the majority. Like, that's happening. That's what Tuchel trusts with this team. And with our back line, that's what Kounde fits perfectly into that. I know he can play in the back 4, but he fits perfectly into the back 3. So that's what we got to sort of go with here. And Dammy, you're spot on. We are so flexible in attack, especially. But I feel like that back 3 it's going to be, like Laurenz said, it's going to be the one we rotate out of. So that's just going to be the main one there. And I have no idea of the front 3 besides Lukaku, really. I want Havertz to start, because I think he's going to be the star of this Chelsea team for years to come. But I have no idea, to tell you the truth, lads. I have no idea what Tuchel's going to do in attacking. I don't envy him. I have no idea what he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I do just want to touch on basically what Dammy hinted on here. Basically putting Mount in the midfield, which could happen. Like, if Tuchel works on this training, Mount 1,000,000% has the capabilities to play that role. without a question of a doubt, in my opinion. Maybe not start it against Man City, next week, but give him a bit of time to get used to it. I think he is 100% capable of doing so. And then that obviously opens up another spot. See, the problem that Ziyech, in my opinion, has, you're never going to play 3 left-footed players in the front three. You just don't do that. That's suicide. Which is weird because you wouldn't say it for right-footed players, but on average, left-footed players are much worse on the weak foot than right-footed players, just because of when you're young.
Unless you're Kai Havertz, of course.
Unless you're Kai Havertz, obviously, there's always exceptions to the rule, and Lukaku is good with his weak foot as well. But Ziyech is more of the realm of Robin and Gareth Bale, where they use it more to stand on rather than do anything else with. So it's whoever you put in here. Surely this is an option. I'm not saying Mount will start instead of Kante, but you guys know Kante at this point probably gets injured and misses a few games, and then you have a situation of Kovacic or Mount. Mount is more of a goal threat. If we play a low block, maybe that's an idea to play, especially if you put in Christensen here, just to put a lot of legs in the back line. Because that back three is mad quick. Like Kounde is quick. Do you know what I mean? Those three could be so aggressive that it almost wouldn't be that much of a problem if Mount pushed a bit and Jorginho stayed a bit. If these obviously are aggressive, then it's okay. So that can happen, but that is something that's, in my opinion, wild speculation whether Mount would actually be used in that role, if that makes sense. But what it means, though, is just this Lukaku signing makes it such a drastic difference in what options we have, because before that it was kind of like, okay, Havertz needs to be the 9 because everybody else is kind of useless. I know some people love Giroud and that, but not to start, in my opinion. And then you kind of didn't have that many left. So you knew Mount was going to start, so you put him in, and then it was just a debate of the other depending on opponent. And one last person I want to put to you, especially first, Demi, and then I'll go to you as well, Con. What about Ziyech? I'm sure you've seen, obviously, the preseason games. Ziyech was very, very good in those preseason games. Like, is he doing a Barkley where he's just absolutely incredible in preseason and then it's going to be similar to last season? Or because if he plays like that, you need to consider him to start.
I know you want to say it, Dabby. Come on. Say it, bro. I know you want to say it. You might as well say it, bro. I'm waiting.
Go
on. Oh my God. I can't be. That's one thing I couldn't believe stuck to me so much, People still remember that false image thing. I didn't know he struck so many chords. I can't believe it, man. But nah. Obviously, people don't really realize why I'm not really the biggest fan of Ziyech. It's because I put out so much propaganda for Ziyech. I put out a tweet even. They got like 15,000 likes on Ziyech propaganda at the start of last season, and he absolutely shanked it, man. So that's why I sort of went left on Ziyech. But truth be told, I'm curious to see how he sort of fits into the team as well this season, because obviously this season, in the preseason, he's obviously done his bits here and there. Obviously, I'm not really going to take too much. I'm not going to look too much into it because obviously in the preseason, you've seen Barkley perform in preseason, you've seen other people perform in preseason. So I'm not going to get too excited. But I'm curious to see how he sort of gets implemented in this team. He could potentially play in behind the strikers. He could be his in-swinger crosses could now be fed into Lukaku as well. The flexibility of having a striker that can bully and push people back and create a lot of space for him to shoot. So there are a lot of opportunities for Hakim Ziyech to actually come into this team and do it Mazzolini for the first time. So I'm quite curious in it. Let's see what I can do it against the big night. Can you do it on the cold night in Stoke? The most important question. I don't know in it, but let's see in it. So, Con, I hope that answer is satisfactory for.
You couldn't say anything or not?
No, that surprisingly, I think that was really nice from Dami. He was nice to see us for a change, which I like. Thank you, Dami. That's beautiful. It's like poetry, bro.
Level-headed this season. That's all I do. At least for now, until we lose our first game.
And then it's back to Reactionary FC. I'm going to join you on that one, bro. Let's go. I feel Ziyech he's such a unique player. Like N'Golo, he's like so unique. I think Ziyech is just like that, to have a winger like Ziyech who's so creative. I feel like we don't have anyone like him in this Chelsea squad. So if he plays on full form, he has to play games because he will create chances upon chances, and he will score, In pre-season, the one thing I really liked, forget about him scoring and everything like that, is how much he was going for things, you know. He looked like his normal self. Don't get me wrong, he lost the ball a lot, but he was trying so many forward passes. He was trying so much. He was trying shots. And he's looking like his old self again. And if he's playing like that, you can't bench him. So adds another problem for who you're going to start, you know. And it's Tuchel's got one big job ahead of him this season, that's for sure.
Hey, that is for damn sure. And just to put it up as an option, obviously we can do that too. Like I said, I would prefer to have one right-footed player up there, but you know, it's probably going to be fine type thing. Mount in between, obviously Hudson-Odoi as that right wing back is always an option, especially against the slightly lesser sides and low blocks and stuff, just to give us a little bit more of attacking prowess, especially like, first of all, give us a wide right footer. Sure, more useful over there to cut in, but you know, he can go up there and then you just create overloads. And because my issue very often, and that I think Hudson-Odoi helps with, because it allows more of these types of players up here, is whether it's Reece, whether it's Mason, whoever cuts those low those cutbacks in from here, or the low crosses into this area, we only ever have one Donny who's here or goes here. If the ball flies past him, there's never anyone here other than when Chilwell goes on a madness, right? So what I'm hoping for is that someone, either Tuchel hasn't told them, if so, someone needs to tell Tuchel. And if Tuchel has told them that the players understand, some Donny needs to end up at this corner of the 6-yard box and just smack the ball home. Because if we start going there, I'm telling you, we score 6 goals every game. Because the amount of crosses we have flying through here, no one gets at the end of, pisses me off every week. I can't lie. But unless either of you have anything else to add, I think this is a good place to slowly but surely round it out. Just a quick couple of last words on Romelu Lukaku. Also, we have over 400 people watching, which is absolutely brilliant. So, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers, and every new subscriber counts. So hit that big red subscribe button. That'd be massively appreciated. Of course, smash the like button as well, why don't you? Let me see how many we're on right now. To be fair, we're on 176, so you're doing pretty well. But considering there's over 400 people here, make sure we get to, like, come on. So we say 250. Let's get to 250 right now. Go smash that like button down below. Honestly, helps me out drastically. And just the last couple of words about Romelu Lukaku. He's coming. Romelu Lukaku is coming, and I'm very pleased. And the last question I'm going to put to both of you guys, and I'm going to go with you first, Con. Out of 10, maybe you've answered this already. If so, I apologize. But maybe some people weren't here that day. Out of 10, how happy are you with Chelsea signing Romelu Lukaku?
This is the first time you asked me, bro, so don't worry.
Brilliant.
I'm a 15, bro. I wanted the world-class striker. We got world-class striker. And, you know, like you said last time on the stream, Lukaku, he has that story with Chelsea. And sometimes it's nice to be a little bit sentimental. Not all the time, don't get me wrong, but sometimes. So I'm a big 15, bro.
There you go. Fair play. Dammy, what about you?
1 in it.
1? All right. Did you just flip it upside down?
1 out of 10, big man. He has no resale value in it. He's sneaker. Can't sell him back.
It's all awful. Why didn't we sign him? Overspent.
He's bald, so it's a problem. You get me? He's got no hair follicles on his head. That's a big issue for me. So it's a 1 out of 10. Before I get clipped and cancelled, obviously it's a 10 out of 10. Come on now. It's a striker that, like, I sympathize with Con on a massive level, because that's all I really wanted. I wanted a clinical striker, a striker that is capable of scoring 20 goals a season in the Premier League. Lukaku can and probably will do that for us. He's got a point to prove. He's coming back to the club he loves very much. I can't see him flopping. He's done it in many teams. I won't say many countries, not many countries, about 3 countries. He's done it around the globe, and it's sort of. So I can see him flopping in any way, shape, or form. Looking forward to this.
So that's 4.
Pardon?
Oh, no, that's still 3. Ignore me.
I mean, except you want to count Manchester as another country, so we can count that's a different end, didn't it? You get me? Manchester and them.
No, but in my head it was like you forgot about Anderlecht. So,
well, no, but I counted Anderlecht, didn't it? Yeah,
no, you did, yeah. And I was like, yeah, you can count them, so it's 4, but no, he just did 2. Otherwise, yeah.
So it's decent, man. I can't complain at all. I can't complain. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
Brilliant. I mean, sorry to ruin anyone now. I was going to say 9. Haaland would have been my 10. Obviously, Con did the 15. If I'm going to say that, I'm going to say 14, and Haaland would have been 15, whatever you want, right? But yeah, I'm very, very, very happy. I'm very happy we got a striker. Also, obviously, all the pictures, like he was here, he unfinished business. He loves Drogba. Drogba confirmed that, like, he's coming home, blah, blah, blah. It's just good. And obviously, when you see it again, and obviously they've come out a lot over the last few weeks, the clip of him first being at Stamford Bridge and how happy he was and stuff like that. So it was just good to see. And I know some people don't, and some people are almost the opposite of that. And I know Jester likes Lukaku, but Jester's almost the opposite of, I like people that like/love the club because I just feel like they'll try harder, they'll work harder. And especially when things are tough, when you're in a tough position, whether it's in a tough spell of the season or whether it's just a tough moment in the game, the more that the players care about the club, the more they will try hard. And sometimes hard work beats quality. That's how we beat Man City 3 times in 6 weeks. Let's not kid ourselves. They still had the better squad than us. We might have the better manager on the day, on whatever, but they have a better squad than us. But we still beat them. That was because of hard work. And, to challenge City over a season, you need to do what Liverpool did. And Liverpool outworked City for 38 games. That's how they beat them. So, the more the people care about the club, the more they're going to work hard. So if Lukaku's going to bring that more than, say, for example, bad example potentially, but still, Morata did, who, gave up after 3 months because of a bit of a sore back. Don't want to, down talk his injury. I'm sure he was hurt, but still. So that's a positive. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it here. Let's see when Romelu Lukaku is going to be announced. Is it going to be tonight? Is it going to be tomorrow morning? Is Lionel Messi even going to PSG? I think it's hilarious, by the way, that the thousands of people that were waiting outside this building for Messi. And then Fabrizio goes and tweets, yeah, by the way, he's at home in his house. He's just chilling. He's nowhere near Paris. So I thought that was hilarious. Obviously, apparently PSG have rented out the Eiffel Tower tomorrow to announce Messi type thing. So PR-wise, it would be slightly suicide for Chelsea to only do it tomorrow. So PR-wise, it would be smarter to get all the attention on Lukaku on this tonight, while tomorrow the whole world is going to only focus on Messi and no one's going to, other than Chelsea fans, no one's going to care about Lukaku tomorrow if Messi is announced. So from that point of view, we'll be smarter. But let's see. Maybe we're also going to just register him, do everything, and the official announcement only comes out Wednesday, even though it's all done and he's already flying to Belfast with the squad. Who knows, right? Everything could happen. Chelsea have done weird things. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it here. Of course, the links to both Con and Dammy are down in the description. Connor, of course, on Twitter, and Dammy, his YouTube channel. He did a video about the whole Lukaku situation on his channel earlier. Check it out. The link is down in the description. Just click the at the Grand Dam. Check it out. Subscribe to him. Subscribe to me if you haven't already. That'd be massively appreciated. Smash that like button. If you want to become a member, there's a member join button underneath of your desktop or a link down in the description if you're on your phone. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow, whether it's for a Lukaku announcement or whether it's simply a Super Cup preview. I will see you guys tomorrow. 6 p.m. should be the time. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. And I'll see you when this loads. And next time.